Today we're going to paint this relaxing sunset landscape together, step by step. Okay, so we're going to start with the sky first. So I'm going to mix up 3 colors right here. The first one is just going to be some cadmium yellow and cadmium red with white. The second one has some cadmium red and Windsor blue, which is phthalo blue red shade. And then the third color has white with a small amount of cadmium red and more of that phthalo blue red shade. So we're going to mix this up and see if we need to adjust it. So these colors are in the right area, but I think we just need to make them a little more vibrant. So we're going to go ahead and add some more color to these. Okay, so I've just added much more of that cadmium red, cadmium yellow to this color. More of that phthalo blue red shade and cadmium red to our purple. And then for our darkest blue at the top, I've added a lot more of that phthalo blue red shade and some cadmium red. Okay, I think that's pretty good now. So now going with a soft brush, this is an 1¼ inch mop brush. I'm going to get a little bit of water and I'm going to go into that orange, our brightest color. And we're going to do this part kind of quickly. So we're going to find that brightest area in the middle. Make sure we got enough water. What we want to see is some of those bubbles starting to happen. That tells you that it's wet enough, kind of like that. Make sure we got enough of that. Then we can go straight into that purple. You can start blending that into that color using a swirling motion. Maybe a little bit on the edges. Then we can go into that final dark blue all the way at the top. Maybe blend it a little bit into that purple. And then go straight into the water with that brush and into a big dry 1¼ inch mop brush. And then it's dry as well. We can start to lightly go back and forth, starting in the orange part and then letting it mix all of this together. Then we can go ahead and rinse that brush. Give it a little dry. Then we can come again at the bottom very lightly, and just give it a nice blend again. And there we go. That'll give us a nice little gradient right there. And now we can also use these colors that we have on the palette. So before we move on though, you can let this dry. I'm gonna use a hair dryer though, real quick. And now after this is dry, we're gonna go ahead and mix up some lighter colors for these clouds and to really make our sunset start to pop. So we can utilize these colors that we still have right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring some white below these colors, except for the blue. And I'm just gonna introduce some of that white into our bright reddish orange here. And then I'm also gonna take some white, introduce it to our purple right here. Not all of it though, I'm gonna keep some of these colors, the original colors up here as well. Just mixing it into about half of it. I think I'm gonna steal a little bit of this orange and mix it into our purple. See what that gives us. I think we'll go ahead and add some red to that. And then I'm gonna add that to this white, see what that gives us. That's a pretty nice color. We're gonna use that for our highlight clouds. Okay, now this is a brush that I made. It's basically it's a number 4 flat brush, but it's hard to tell, but I have kind of cut into the end of it. It's an old brush as well, so it's really stiff and kind of rough on the edge. But when we use a little bit of paint, we'll get really good texture dry brushing with this. So the first thing I want to do is come back to our original light orange that we started with and just grab a little of that paint, just a small amount. And I'm going to start lightly filling in some of our bright areas again. Just grab some more paint. Starting towards the bottom. Kind of gonna scrub it in and blend it out towards this dark purple. Starting in the middle again. And then blending it lightly up. And I'm just using a small amount of paint for this. This is a dry brushing technique. Just lightly blending it up into that purple. In the reference photo, it kind of comes over here a little bit. maybe there's some more along the bottom over here. Okay. Now we can go ahead and rinse that off, dry that off. And we can come in with our light highlight now to go over that bright area. Definitely much more paint here, and we can see in the reference photo there's really bright spots. Just gonna carefully choose where they are. Kind of lightly put them in. You can also just do really whatever you want. I'm not fully looking at the reference photo. Just the idea of some really bright spots in the sky. And there definitely is some really bright spots all on the bottom. And what's cool about this brush is we can get some texture by tapping. Gives some different texture. Like there's some different clouds here. Okay. And we can even mix some of that, mix kind of a middle tone with our two colors here. Kind of a color in between. Try to get some of that excess off. And we can use that to create even more depth into the sky. I'll just kind of add this around the pink part of the sky, the orange part of the sky. Okay, now we can rinse that off, dry it off. And I want to come into our darker purple now. I'm gonna grab a little bit more paint for this one because we need to create a bunch of clouds in here. So gotta get kind of bold with it and just decide where these clouds are at. I'm kind of looking at the reference photo and just creating the wispiness, the base of these clouds. Varying my direction of the brush as well. Making sure they leave the canvas here and there. And of course we want to play with some of that side to side clouds. And you can also bring some of that, just a little bit of that, into the brighter areas. You see that? Very small amount. That will really add some depth. Could do the same over here. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna go straight into our lightest pink that we have here. Or purple, I should say. I'm gonna rinse off the brush first, actually. Dry it real quick. We'll come into that light pink, light purple. And then we're gonna add some highlights. So our sun is down here, right? So it's gonna be towards the bottoms of those clouds that we created. So let me zoom in a bit here. Okay. We're going to add some of those highlights on the bottom of the clouds. Start to create the three-dimensional part of the fluffy clouds. You can kind of do some circular motions to create those soft edges. Very lightly. You can kind of use your finger too to soften it up sometimes if you happen to put too much. course, we can bring some of that down here, kind of lightly. I think I'll add just a little bit more over here. Kind of like the reference photo. I'm not really going off the reference photo at this point. It's more so where my clouds are from the purple that we laid down. And then also just kind of sit back for a second and decide where I think it might need some more highlights or some more clouds. Now, the best part of the sky, adding the final bright highlights. So I'm literally just gonna bring even more white. Rinse off that brush and add some more white to our lightest colors. Almost pure white now. It just has a hint of those colors. This will be our brightest highlight. So here will be definitely all around this bottom area where the sun is. I'm going to choose very sparingly a few spots within that area. And then I'll even take pure white to make our sun right here. And I'll go back to that color that we used right here, and I'll just add a couple spots. To these clouds right above the sun. And you can rinse that off. And we'll come into our next highlight, which will be for our purple clouds, our pink clouds. We'll bring some white into that color. There we go, that is a beautiful color. And we'll choose our spots very sparingly. That might be a little too bright actually. We'll just add some more of our purple to it. Okay. We'll just come in with a little bit of that. I'm trying to get rid of some of that paint. Okay. And of course, towards the bottom, we won't want to cover up all of it, but you see how I'm going on just the bottom parts of our medium pink, our middle tone, because that is where the sunlight is coming from. I'm not even looking at the reference photo at this point because we already have our clouds in place. Kind of just a matter of sprinkling those highlights where you think they belong on the bottoms of those clouds. Make sure we get those highlights just above the cloud, just above the sun here. That will kind of add to that realism. Of that sunlight coming up through the clouds here. So for the distant trees, we're gonna make ourselves kind of a dark purple. So it gives us a really good illusion of distant trees. So I'll just go ahead and keep using this same brush here. But I'm gonna take our darkest purple and I'm gonna add just a touch of black to it. And it'll kind of bring it into a grayer purple. Add a little bit more. That's probably good to start with right there. So now I need to find the horizon line. So I'm gonna go ahead and go just below the sun. And I'm gonna try to bring it all the way across, straight across, and off the canvas. And then I can begin to start building these trees in the distance. Turn the brush vertically. And find some of these trees way in the distance. Just lightly tapping, getting some of that texture in the distance. We'll make it look like far away trees out here. We can make maybe a little bit lighter of a purple here. And we can add some even further stuff right back here. Certain areas. I think I'll just add a little bit more texture right here. Okay, we're gonna take a little bit of yellow, of our cad yellow, mix it into our phthalo green. That will boost the saturation there. Then we'll add some of our raw umber into that to kind of darken it up a bit. And I'll add some black to that. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab a fan brush for this. I'm going to grab this color and I'm going to start to block in the entire foreground here. I do think it needs to be a lot darker, so I'm going to grab that black. Just put it right in there into the green. Mix it right there. There we go. And we'll go ahead and put this all the way. We'll get it close to the back and then we'll take a different brush to get a fine line at the horizon. But we'll make sure we'll get the whole canvas. We can just grab a flat brush to bring that to the horizon. We can kind of use that flat brush to create some of the land, the way the land goes. So we're just kind of flattening out that texture that we put. We know there's going to be a road about here. So we can start flattening out that texture over here. Maybe just leaving a few spots towards the front where that texture stays. There we go. And all we'll do, we'll add just a little bit of yellow to that color. We'll go in with that fan brush and just choose a few spots. A few little spots. We can lighten up that color just a bit right towards the front here. Kind of use the corner of the brush. So let's go ahead and maybe just light a little bit of that lighter purple that we have. Come in here with a flat brush. And I'm just going to find where that road kind of ends and just bring it through all of that grass. Can even use a little bit of that dark black color. That green color just around that path. Okay, the last thing I want to do, I'm going to add just a little bit of black, just a tiny bit of paint. And I'm going to come back over some of these tree areas. And then for the final touch, I'm just going to take some pure white. Just put it right over the sun there. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for painting with me today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like and also subscribe so you don't miss my next videos. If you would like to learn how to paint a realistic tree, you can click right here to watch this video. Thank you again, everybody, and as always, peaceful painting.